Hey warriors, welcome back to the channel. I watched my brother build an empire by being soft, by giving everything, by trusting blindly until the world taught him the price of that naivety. He lost everything he thought mattered. He lost his peace, his clarity, his power to the wolves he mistook for friends. 18 months later, I saw him again. He wasn't the same man anymore. He was calculated, he was dangerous, and he told me something that changed how I see power forever. He said, "The world never owed me kindness. I was paying for a lesson with everything I had. I learned to take it back." That moment shattered everything I believed about being good, about being trustworthy, about building connections based on genuine care. It wasn't just his awakening, it was mine. And if you're listening, it's yours too. Right now, you're living between two identities. The first version is the one that trusts too easily, gives without measure, sacrifices himself, hoping for recognition that never comes. You bend yourself into shapes people prefer. You smile when you want to scream. You forgive when you should remember. The more you offer, the less they appreciate. But then there's version 2, the one that exists in your darkest moments when you're finally done. This version doesn't explain, doesn't chase, doesn't compromise. They extract what they need and disappear without guilt, without looking back. You've been trapped in version 1 for years now, and it's costing you everything. It's made you weak where you should be sharp, generous where you should be calculating. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." He wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was teaching the art of control, the science of knowing when to stop being the person who sacrifices for those unworthy of sacrifice. Today I'm going to show you the transformation into version 2, the one that operates from dominance, not desperation, the one people sense but can never predict. There are 8 fundamental shifts that separate the broken from the unbreakable. Each one will demand you destroy a part of your old identity. Each one will feel like betraying everything you believed about goodness and compassion. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll emerge as someone unrecognizable, someone dangerous, not through cruelty but through clarity. You'll stop chasing peace and start commanding it. You'll learn what it means to be untouchable because the world will consume you unless you become ruthless. Before we dive in, I need you to drop this in the comments. I refuse to be broken again. Number 1, stop investing in the ungrateful. Your greatest weakness was never your heart, it was your placement of it. You've been pouring yourself into people who feed on your light and give nothing back. You kept helping, kept forgiving, kept explaining, hoping that one day they'd finally recognize your value. But they never will. Why? Because in the psychology of power, freely given things are subconsciously despised. People instinctively see generosity as inferiority. When you give too easily, they assume you need their approval. The moment someone senses that need, they own you. That's how weakness gets born, not from failure, but from emotional dependence disguised as kindness. Machiavelli said, "Men are quicker to offend one who is loved than one who is feared." The ungrateful test you precisely because they don't fear losing you. They know you'll stay. They know you'll keep forgiving. They know that regardless of how they treat you, you'll invent excuses for their behavior, convince yourself they're struggling, tell yourself that patience will change them. That's not compassion. That's self-deception. People remember wounds, not gestures. They respect consequences, not speeches. The more predictable your mercy, the more invisible you become. Every time you accepted disrespect, you trained them to view you as disposable. Every time you justified their actions, you proved you'd always rationalize their betrayal. That's the dark psychology behind why kind people get destroyed first. The world doesn't break you for being kind. It breaks you because you confuse kindness with powerlessness. The ungrateful are predators wearing human skin. They don't hunt your body. They hunt your guilt. They manipulate you into believing you're wrong for protecting yourself. They weaponize your empathy and use it against you. So stop thinking you owe anyone your loyalty because you once felt something for them. Your care is a privilege they must earn, not a right they're born with. Give it only to those who consistently demonstrate respect through their actions. Everyone else deserves to feel the sting of your absence. Distance is your defense. Indifference is your power. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and covetous." So, never give them control over your life, because they will weaponize it to destroy you. You must unlearn the fiction that goodness will save you. Goodness without boundaries is suicide. Ruthlessness is not violence, it's wisdom. It's the moment you stop rewarding disloyalty with access. When you stop taking every call, stop accepting every lie, stop justifying your silence, the ungrateful collapse. They realize they can't manipulate your emotions anymore. That's when the power shifts. You become the architect of who gets your attention and who becomes irrelevant. The world belongs to those who guard their energy like a weapon, not those who waste it like sentiment. Every drop of strength you pour into the wrong people is stolen from your future. Take it back. Protect it. Rebuild it. Let them question what happened to your warmth. Tell them it froze when you finally understood the truth. Some people deserve your distance more than your devotion. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My care has conditions. Number 2, weaponize your pain. Pain is the most honest teacher because it never lies. It doesn't protect your ego. It doesn't accept your excuses. It exposes you, strips you, burns everything fragile inside you until only the authentic remains. The difference between the destroyed and the dominant isn't how much pain they experienced. It's what they built from it. Weak people drown in pain because they keep searching for fairness. They still believe the universe owes them justice. But powerful minds understand the truth. Pain is currency. You either invest it in your elevation or waste it in your complaints. Those who rise from devastation aren't lucky. They're strategic. They look at betrayal, heartbreak, and failure, and instead of asking why me, they ask, what is this teaching me about power? Machiavelli said, never waste the opportunity offered by crisis. Every moment of suffering is a chance to evolve into someone impossible to penetrate. Pain isn't punishment. It's information. It reveals exactly where your weakness lives. Every backstab shows you who you trusted too blindly. Every rejection exposes where you anchored your worth. Every loss proves that permanence is an illusion. When you start interpreting pain this way, it stops being a weapon against you and becomes a weapon for you. It stops destroying your mind and starts sharpening it. The dark psychology of becoming unstoppable lies in transforming suffering into strategy. Most people cry for comfort. The strong analyze for advantage. When they're wounded, they don't seek closure. They seek power. They study their enemies instead of hating them. They dissect their failures instead of running from them. They convert every heartbreak into emotional armor, every disappointment into focus. That's Machiavellian evolution, using the world's cruelty as fuel, not as chains. Pain is the furnace where dominance is forged. When life shatters you, it's revealing who you are without the performance. Don't flee from it. Sit inside it. Feel every degree of the fire. Because once you survive your own destruction, no external force can control you through fear. The moment you stop fearing pain, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is ultimate power. When others attempt to control you through shame or rejection, it fails because you've already endured worse and survived. Machiavelli taught that the wise learn more from suffering than from comfort because pain forces awareness. It demands evolution. It eliminates illusion. You start recognizing people for who they actually are, not who you wish them to be. You start prioritizing logic over feeling. The more you endure, the less reactive you become. You move through the world like someone baptized in fire. That energy demands respect because it's dangerous. People sense it when you enter a space, the presence of someone who transformed every scar into strength. You no longer hide your wounds with shame. You display them like battle medals. Your words become heavy, your stare unwavering. That's the moment you understand you've evolved from being shaped by pain to shaping others through wisdom. The next time life wounds you, don't resent it, dissect it. Ask yourself what hidden advantage exists here, because every moment of agony contains the seed of dominance if you're ruthless enough to harvest it. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My wounds become weapons. Number 3. End the addiction to being understood. The desperate need to be understood is the chain that keeps intelligent minds enslaved. You keep explaining yourself, hoping people will comprehend your intentions, your integrity, your reality. But here's the brutal fact. Most people don't care to understand you. They care only to label you. They don't listen to comprehend. They listen to discover weakness. The more you explain, the more ammunition you hand them to use against you. In dark psychology, understanding equals control. When people know your motives, they can manipulate you. That's why the ruthless stay silent. They let others wonder, project, assume, and in that void of information, they remain untouchable. Machiavelli said, "He who wishes to be obeyed must know how to command, and commanding requires never explaining yourself, because explanation is admission of doubt. It reveals you still crave validation. Power doesn't defend itself. It simply is." The most feared people are those who never justify their actions, their feelings, their departures. Their silence creates unease. That unease creates respect. The powerless beg to be seen. The powerful choose to be unknown. You must learn that silence makes you dangerous. When you stop defending yourself, you become incomprehensible. And incomprehensibility is fear's cousin. People can't manipulate what they can't decode. This is why throughout history, leaders and strategists mastered calculated ambiguity. They spoke less than they knew and acted more than they announced. You must learn to do the same. Every time you rush to clarify your thinking, you expose the workings of your mind. You're teaching people how to disarm you. The danger of being honest is that it invites examination, and examination always destroys the mystery that power requires. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man acts at once, while the fool acts finally. The wise stop explaining early. The fool talks until he's completely transparent. You don't owe anyone insight into your decisions. You don't owe anyone justification for your withdrawal, your boundaries, your standards, or your evolution. Let them misinterpret. Let them decide you've grown cold, become arrogant, turned distant. Every wrong label they assign becomes another brick in your wall. The instant you stop correcting their assumptions, you regain absolute control. Because control lives in restraint. Silence is calculated strength. It makes others anxious because they can't forecast your behavior. And uncertainty demands caution. That's psychological dominance perfected. Think of the most dominant people you've known. They weren't talkative. They were composed. Their presence commanded attention. Not because they were loud, but because they didn't need to be. Every word they withheld spoke louder than 1,000 explanations. You must develop that presence. A mystery people can never fully understand. A force that doesn't announce itself. When someone tries to provoke you, let your silence suffocate their desperation. When someone misjudges you, let them live with that mistake. The truth is your weapon. Don't squander it defending your name. Those who require understanding you don't deserve it. Those who genuinely respect you never need clarification. Real power isn't about converting others. It's about becoming so self-certain that their judgment becomes irrelevant. Once you abandon the need to be understood, you finally begin understanding yourself. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. Number 4, master the discipline of detachment. Chasing for attention, affection, or resolution is how strong people become servants. The more you pursue what's leaving, the smaller you become to those who never intended to respect you. Detachment isn't coldness. It's authority. It's the capacity to release anything that damages your self-respect, regardless of how desperately you wanted it. Most people confuse attachment with devotion, but they're opposing forces. Devotion is strength. Attachment is captivity. Society has taught you that pursuing people demonstrates your love. But in dark psychology, whoever chases always loses ground. The act of pursuing, whether for time, affection, or recognition, broadcasts vulnerability, and vulnerability invites predation. Machiavelli wrote, "The one who doesn't control himself cannot control others." When your feelings govern you, you're simple to manipulate. The ruthless detach not because they lack emotion, but because they refuse to be enslaved by it. When someone distances themselves, they don't fight or justify, they watch. When someone disrespects them, they don't plead, they exit. Quiet becomes their weapon, and distance becomes their statement. In a world built on emotional control, detachment is supreme rebellion. It horrifies manipulators because it destroys their control source, your response. Once you stop responding, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are feared. The secret strength of the powerful isn't anger, it's detachment. Detachment freezes colder than rage and persists longer than love. When people can't anticipate your response, they lose their grip on your thoughts. That's when your energy transforms. You stop being passive and start being the decision maker. The people who once overlooked you begin noticing your distance because silence from someone previously reactive is louder than any confrontation. Detachment grants you peculiar influence, the influence to exit chaos while maintaining your tranquility. Machiavelli taught that commanding your feelings was the basis of any powerful leader because those who cannot detach will be controlled by those who can. He said people move between two forces. They're driven by affection or by dread. Master your attachment, and you command both. The untouchable understand that not everyone deserves access. Not all emotions require expression, and not all bonds deserve resurrection. You must learn to reclaim your energy without explanation, to shut doors soundlessly, and to make your separation feel like defeat. That's psychological control at its most refined. The more you detach, the more authority you recover. You recognize that peace doesn't come from relationships. It comes from authority. Genuine strength is when you can cherish someone deeply, yet leave the second they jeopardize your dignity. Detachment doesn't mean you're cold. It means you love yourself correctly first. Because when you stop pursuing, you stop exhausting yourself. And when you stop exhausting yourself, no one can drain you anymore. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose myself first. Number 5. Construct walls that cannot crumble. Boundaries are the silent force that separates authority from disorder. Without them, your existence becomes open terrain where people invade, steal, and abandon you empty. You've been programmed to believe that declining is selfish, that boundaries mean you're cruel. But in reality, the lack of boundaries is self-annihilation. Every time you tolerate disrespect, every time you forgive without cost, every time you permit boundary violations to maintain harmony, you destroy yourself. Broken people mistake boundaries for harshness. The strong understand differently. They know that an undefended heart is a target. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince who is not wise himself cannot be well advised." Meaning this: if you don't protect yourself, no one else will. The world doesn't prize generosity. It exploits it. The ones who flatter your kindness today will exploit your forgiveness tomorrow. That's the fundamental nature of human desire. People perpetually test boundaries you refuse to enforce. Boundaries aren't barriers to exclude others. They're borders that defend what matters inside you. They're not cruelty, they're clarity. And clarity destroys manipulators because it eliminates their advantage. In dark psychology, boundaries are instruments of control. The individual who enforces them determines every relationship's rules. When you firmly decline without remorse, you communicate power. When you end access after betrayal, you communicate that your worth is absolute. The powerful don't argue about respect. They demonstrate it through distance. Forgiveness without cost is surrender. Compassion without limits invites disruption. The instant you stop accepting poor behavior with your presence, you start enforcing silence from those who once crossed you. The scared will label it arrogance. The weak will judge it as ego, but the intelligent will understand it as self-authority. Machiavelli wrote, "He who permits himself to be deceived deserves deception." You teach people how to treat you by what you accept. The second you start protecting your peace like a kingdom, the parasites vanish, the noise fades, and your sanity returns. Then you finally recognize who actually respects you, those who honor your rules rather than resent them. Boundaries attract integrity and expel corruption. They distinguish the devoted from the selfish, the authentic from the deceptive. They transform your presence into something earned, not granted. To exist without boundaries is to exist without self-respect. To establish them is to govern your world with silent precision. The ruthless understand that generosity without protection guarantees destruction. So they establish barriers not out of fear but out of intelligence. Because the goal isn't being adored, it's being respected. Remember this. Every boundary you establish is a statement. This is where my authority begins, and those who genuinely respect you will never demand you sacrifice your protection. They'll stand across from it with recognition. Now I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My boundaries are sacred. Number 6, weaponize your silence. Silence is the tool the dominant employ when language becomes worthless. Most individuals dread silence because it reveals their powerlessness. They communicate constantly to demonstrate confidence, to hunt validation through sound. But every surplus word you speak becomes a weapon in someone else's arsenal. The intelligent understand that in a universe hooked on conversation, silence is dominance. Machiavelli wrote, "Never fully reveal your thoughts. It makes you predictable and exposed." The second people can read your mind, they can forecast your behavior. And whoever can predict you controls you. Silence renders you incomprehensible. It generates mystery that forces others to second-guess themselves. The composed person in a room always wields more power than the one demanding attention. In dark psychology, silence isn't vacancy, it's calculation. It rebalances dominance without warfare. When you stay quiet, you force others to disclose everything. They expose their doubts, plans, and vulnerabilities while attempting to decipher you. The ruthless exploit this. They observe rather than speak, listen rather than announce, act rather than guarantee. The powerless rush to support their position. The strong wait for the ideal instant to move. Every moment you hold in a talk expands your strength. Every moment you let others break the silence, they unknowingly surrender authority. Machiavelli believed dominance thrives on perception. The less people comprehend your designs, the more they fear them. Silence generates psychological strain. It makes people project their anxieties onto you. They begin wondering about your thinking, your next move, and that anxiety grants you invisible power. This explains why silence isn't emptiness. It's presence amplified. You don't need volume to be acknowledged. Your restraint speaks louder than chaos. The loudest voice almost never commands authority. They're searching for it, but the composed one already has it. The rulers of history grasped this. The less you share, the more they speculate. The more they speculate, the more they submit. You must learn to employ your composure, to transform silence into your weapon. When someone attacks you, maintain composure and observe them deteriorate in their own desperation. When someone tries to ignite you, provide no response and let their desperation reveal them. Your silence will reverberate louder than any rebuttal. People anticipate sound. They're unsettled by quiet. In quiet exists authority. Machiavelli said, "The wise man acts at once while the fool acts finely. The fool protects himself through noise. The wise guards himself through quiet." The moment you stop justifying, you transition from reactive to intentional. You stop fighting defense and start commanding the arena. Authority doesn't request comprehension. It demands presence. Silence renders you incomprehensible, and unpredictability brings respect. When you learn to command your words, you learn to command your power. And in a realm where everybody demands recognition, whoever masters silence becomes undefeatable. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence creates respect. Number 7, refuse complete loyalty. Loyalty is only a strength when it's selective. The second you give it unconditionally, it becomes your shackle. Machiavelli warned that people are ungrateful, inconsistent, and dishonest. So expecting unqualified loyalty sets you up for destruction. Authority belongs to those who recognize when to align and when to distance themselves. The world isn't moved by virtue, it's moved by strategy. When you give unlimited loyalty to anyone, a companion, a teacher, or an authority, you surrender your freedom. They start to see your commitment as a flaw, not a benefit. The loyal are readable, and readability is defeat in the game of authority. Dark psychology teaches that loyalty must be strategic, never emotional. True Machiavellian loyalty is conditional. It serves your transformation, your defense, your ascension. Once it stops serving those aims, it requires reassessment. Most people stay loyal out of anxiety, fear of solitude, fear of condemnation, fear of losing appreciation. But these identical people end up discarded, betrayed, or forgotten when they're no longer beneficial. The powerful never bind themselves to the individual. They bind themselves to the advantage. They understand relationships shift. They don't oppose it. They navigate it. Your loyalty should be a facade, not your reality. You put it on when it profits you and discard it when it turns into a burden. This isn't cruelty. It's pragmatism. The world compensates those who think, not those who sense. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise man ought never to make himself depend completely on one thing or one individual. Reliance annihilates liberty, and liberty is the foundation of dominance. Never communicate where your heart lies. Let people think you're committed, but keep yourself unrestricted." The facade of commitment is more effective than commitment itself. It keeps others secure while keeping you independent. In statecraft, enterprise, and relationships, this is the method empires are established. Princes decline because they trust excessively. Workers are removed because they serve excessively. Companions transform into opponents because they demand equivalence where hierarchy exists. When you're excessively devoted, people stop respecting you. They test your limits. They exploit your commitment. They stop dreading your disappearance. Fear establishes authority. When people understand you'll leave with composure, they regard your commitment as honor, not certainty. That's how you demand recognition. You must learn to distribute commitment like a tool, exact, precise, and exclusively when it serves your interests. Never grant it like a present. Presents are overlooked, but tools are respected. This mentality makes you incomprehensible, which is supreme psychological advantage. They can't manipulate someone they can't categorize. And that's the foundation of Machiavellian authority, remaining a puzzle in view, devoted in public but unattached in substance. The contemporary world will label this unkind or self-centered. But those are the words of the conquered, the identical ones who honor those who forsook them. Keep this close. Commitment without scheme is self-betrayal. You owe nothing to anyone who wouldn't sacrifice everything for your survival. Your commitment must consistently serve your mission, not the individuals who arrive and leave along the journey. Number 8. Become the force no one can shake. Becoming unshakable is the ultimate manifestation of authority. It is the condition where no offense, betrayal, or manipulation can crack your armor. This condition isn't about violence or self-importance. It's about complete independence. The world will perpetually send chaos your direction. Individuals will perpetually challenge your resolve, and circumstances will never conform to your vision. The broken shatter, the fearful react, and the unprepared disintegrate, but the unstoppable. They proceed like wind across a battlefield, untouched, composed, unowned. Machiavelli wrote, "He who is intelligent will rule himself, for he who is governed by others is perpetually enslaved." Authentic independence comes from internal authority. To become unshakable, you must quit searching for affection, authorization, and recognition. These are falsehoods, snares that anchor you to others' impulses. The world doesn't honor compassion, nor does it reward ethics. It honors authority, personal control, and relentless understanding. When you stop requiring others to satisfy your pride, you start recovering your strength. That strength becomes a barricade, protecting you from exploitation, deception, and waste. The unshakable cultivate themselves consciously. They dedicate themselves to knowledge, practice, and intelligence rather than permission. They build resilience, awareness, and hidden authority. Their reputation isn't created by noise, but by steadiness and invisible strength. Dark psychology exposes that individuals dread what they cannot control. Once you become indifferent to desire, to response, to the desire to be comprehended or cherished, you become a psychological anomaly. No one can anticipate your behavior. No one can manipulate your mind. You've eliminated their handles. The unshakable don't operate from feeling. They operate from knowledge. Rage is controlled, terror is meaningless, and appetite is regulated. Every reaction is deliberate. Every silence is intentional. You transform into the focal point around which disruption rotates, steady amid the destruction that overwhelms others. Machiavelli stated, "It is better to be feared than to be beloved if you cannot be both." Being feared isn't about violence. It's about command, dominance, and the understanding that crossing you has implications. Unshakability is the strength to make individuals think before testing you. It is the composed announcement that you're no longer susceptible to exploitation. No offensive remark, no disloyalty, no manipulation can disturb you because you're total within yourself. You're no longer a mirror of others' opinions. You're the product of your own technique and dedication. To reach this condition, you must discard the final traces of reliance, the desire to defend, the desire to forgive, the desire to receive recognition. You must transcend attachment, rage, and longing. The unshakable don't react because they recognize the fleeting nature of external appreciation. They're anchored to themselves, and that anchor is permanent. When you reach this condition, authority is natural. Individuals sense it instinctively. They either honor it or fear it, but they cannot reject it. You're no longer a participant in the control of others. You're the benchmark against which authority and sway are assessed. You move throughout existence unshakable because you've conquered the only thing that truly mattered, yourself. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am unshakable. The world will make an effort to destroy you. It will evaluate your resolve, betray your confidence, and punish your compassion. It will demonstrate that fairness isn't genuine, that individuals are changeable, and that the sole thing you can manage is yourself. For far too long, you've permitted others to control your state. You've donated your strength to the undeserving, chased for comprehension, and let connection bind you to regret. But that period finishes now. You now have the manual to become someone no one can manipulate, no one can exploit, no one can hurt. You've learned to stop giving to the ungrateful. You've converted your wounds into power. You've terminated the desire to be understood, distanced yourself from what destroys you, and reinforced yourself with barriers that cannot break. You've learned silence, earned recognition through composure, wielded loyalty strategically, and transformed into someone unshakable. None of this is coincidence. None of it is basic. But every stage you travel in this direction removes the world's authority over you. Machiavelli once wrote, "The wise man acts at once, while the fool acts finally." Right now, you're deciding intelligence. You're deciding authority. You're deciding ruthlessness in the most measured, composed, and commanding sense. This is the version of you that the world cannot bend, cannot trick, and cannot destroy. The journey ahead will test you, and there will be difficulties. But every obstacle now becomes leverage. Every disloyalty becomes understanding. Every difficulty becomes a chance to demonstrate that you're no longer obtainable for exploitation. The unshakable are tempered in burning, honed by knowledge, and protected by self-authority. Persist in this understanding. Move through existence with understanding and control. Evolve into the individual who operates without apology, who commands without announcement, who surges without consent. And as you follow this path, understand the world will sense the change, but only once you become unshakable. If you discovered benefit in this program, make sure to like this video, forward this to someone who requires this perspective, and join this community for additional techniques that make you effective, insightful, and impossible to break. You're no longer the individual that bends, you're the individual that dominates. Drop this ultimate affirmation in the comments. I am unshakable now.